Hare Krishna. So let's begin with an invocation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today I'm going to be showing you a demo class on 7th Canto, Chapter 2. So if all of you can have your book or your Vedabase ready in front of you, that will be really nice. So you can follow the verses that I will be reading to you. And I'm going to be only reading the translations, not the purports. Now, in my last seminar, I explained to you how the methodology of doing these demonstration of these classes with our children, where we take turns reading only the translation, and then the teacher or the parent opens it for discussion wherever she or he sees a need for discussion. In other words, we don't stop at every translation, but we stop only where we want to discuss. So this process I'm going to do with you with this chapter 2 of Canto 7, and we will see how it goes. Okay, so we will not do it with children. Obviously, it's very hard online. So I'm going to just do it myself and explain to you the different points that one can bring up, and how one point can lead to another point, and how this really sharpens the critical thinking skills of our children, the reasoning skills, and how we can debate, how can we can have play devil's advocate, and so many other things we can do during this discussion. And in the end, and then we'll do some reflection where the children will get a chance to give their realizations. Okay. Hare Krishna. Okay, so let's begin. Let me begin reading. So this is Canto 2. I'm sorry, Canto 7, Chapter 2. So generally I begin with reciting the Sanskrit text for only the first one, and then we begin taking turns reading the translation. So this is the story of Prahlad Maharaj, a very popular story for our children, but a story that goes very, very deep. It goes very, very deep. And it also brings out many, many lessons about today's environment, and comparing that with Hiranyakashipu's demoniac ways. It also can bring points of the environment and what he was doing to the environment, the ecology, and also our own, how we can look inwards and our own character. And also it teaches by contrast, because this is the story of the greatest terrorist of our time, Hiranyakashipu, and the greatest devotee ever, and that was Prahlad Maharaj. So the children learn by contrast how to bring the two together. A lot of the learning of the scriptures is done through contrast. And so that will also be brought out to some extent in this story. So this is the part where Hiranyakashipu is very, very angry because Vishnu has just killed his brother Hiranyaksha. We read that in the 3rd canto, how he came as Varahadev and he killed his brother Hiranyaksha because he had submerged Mother Earth at the bottom of the Garbhodak ocean. And there's this beautiful description of how he brings her back on the surface of the ocean while he takes care of this demon. Now, Hiranyaksha is very, very angry about that. And he's venting out to all his friends, to all his followers, and vowing to kill Vishnu. And we see his mood of anger and frustration. Now, we've already read in the we will be reading in the fourth chapter about Hiranyakashipu. We read to some extent earlier that how uh, Hiranyakashipu is so powerful that he's controlling everything, and how he controls all the universal business. He's controlling all this functions of the demigods, and all alone he's controlling it. And out of fear, all these Mother Earth and the ocean, they are giving him great opulence of produce, of vegetables and fruits, and also of jewels. So that's how powerful he is. And we can, and so that power has gotten to his head, and now he's going to want to do very, very demoniac things of wanting to kill kill the Vaishnavas and the cows, and kill all the trees. So we're going to hear some of this, and it provides a great avenue for our children to hear, because when children hear about these demons in the scriptures, then they understand that this is the nature of material life. So that when this happens in today's society, they can see it in context, and they are not surprised or frustrated or disappointed. They know that this is the nature of the world, and how a devotee handles it, and how Krishna is always protecting his devotees. Right? So by learning through the eyes of Shastra the nature of this material world, the children become very, very strong. And instead of becoming fearful, and one should not see these stories as being too violent or too scary for the children. In fact, there's a side in children who loves all this action and horror and all these things, because this is, we have, for example, they love to watch horror movies. So we all have that side in us where we want to deal with these things. So that satisfies their side in them. But at the same time, it gives them some very deep moral lessons from it. It's not like, when children play with video games, they have all these games where they are destroying, cars or people or Lord knows what, right? But they don't have a context. There's those games that are violent. They don't have a context. They're not giving us a purpose why this violence is being committed, right? Why are people being killed? They're just being killed because I don't like them. They're being killed because they haven't fulfilled my false ego. So the reason is very, very materialistic and very dangerous. But when we see violence in the pages of the scriptures, this violence is very, very instructive, and it has a purpose. And Krishna quickly takes care of that violence. This is what we're going to see. How Hiranyakashipu, when he becomes very, very violent and very, very terrorizes everyone, then Krishna comes in the picture to save his devotee. So it's always with the context. So when Krishna becomes when he shows his violence by taking Hiranyakashipu on his lap and tearing out his intestines and wearing it like a garland, to an outsider it may seem so gruesome. But this violence is legitimate because Hiranyakashipu, has certainly deserved it. And Krishna, by doing that, he's relieving the entire planet from his destructive behavior. When Prahlad pacifies the Lord with his prayers in that chapter, he mentions how even a saintly person is happy when such a person is killed, right? So and Prabhupada explains that point, that Krishna, he does this. He kills the demons for a purpose, and because his killing is different from any other killing of this mundane world, he also liberates such demons. Okay, so this kind of violence does not go to children's hearts. Does not destroy their good qualities. In fact, it enhances it. So let's begin reading this chapter and explore the way we can go really deep with our children. Now, I mentioned to you last time how this can be done with different age groups. So I'm going to do it with an age group which would be like 8 years to 16, in that age group. But we have to remember that we can make it, we can adjust it to children younger than 9, and we can also make it even more advanced for children older than 16. So this is a very flexible process, and I will also show you some ways where you can make it simpler. This way, you will know where your child is at and what she or he can handle, right? How advanced you can go. But it's amazing as you do it, how the children, because they are learning the process of going deeper and deeper into the story, they will learn how they will actually develop the capacity to reason each time and go deeper and deeper and go through many, many layers. Even a little child as young as 7 years old or 8 years old is able, even younger sometimes. So we should not underestimate their intelligence. So if you have your books ready, please follow. So text 1, Shri Narad Muni said, "My dear King Yudhishthir, when Lord Vishnu in the form of Varaha, the boar, killed Hiranyaksha's brother Hiranyakashipu was extremely angry and began to lament. Filled with rage and biting his lips, Hiranyakashipu gazed at the sky with eyes that blazed in anger, making the whole sky smoky. Thus he began to speak. Exhibiting his terrible teeth, fierce glance, and frowning eyebrows, terrible to see, he took up his weapons, a trident, and thus began speaking to his associates, the assembled demons. O Danavas and Daityas, O Divimurdha, Triyaksha, Shambhara, and Shatabhahu, O Hayagriva, Namuchi, Paka, and Ilvala, O Viprachiti, Puloman, Shakuna, and other demons, all of you, kindly hear me attentively and then act according to my words without delay. My insignificant enemies, the demigods, have combined to kill my very dear and obedient well-wisher, my brother Hiranyaksha. Although the Supreme Lord Vishnu is always equal to both of us, namely the demigods and the demons, this time, being devoutly worshipped by the demigods, he has taken their side and helped them kill Hiranyaksha. So he's accusing the Lord of being partial. And you can explain what partial means. It means to take sides. I like you because you're my friend, partiality, right? So in the previous chapter, in chapter 1, Shukadev Goswami answers this question of Parikshit Maharaj about whether Krishna is partial or not, and he discusses that very deeply. So if you've already read it with your child, you can quickly summarize it here and ask him questions or her questions whether Krishna is partial, and they may be able to quickly recollect saying whether Krishna is partial or not, So in this way, we can test them a little bit and they can have an opportunity to speak. And just to recap, Krishna, he's really impartial because, we can see that even the demons that he kills, he has nothing against them. He even liberates them. And Krishna actually responds to the surrender of his devotees. He rewards according to the surrender of the devotees. Right? Because, just like in a government, if the citizens are very obedient, naturally they get all the facilities of making making material advancement. But for citizens who are not law-abiding, they have to be punished. It doesn't mean that the government is partial to one and not partial and doesn't like the other one. It just simply means who is more surrendered, right? So Krishna is like that. So in this way, you can explain the simple points. Now with the older devotees, you can actually go deeper into it. You can talk about, how Krishna is, he's really, he doesn't, how he's always doing such, you can talk about the relationship of Krishna with his devotees, how he reciprocates to their love. And that you cannot blame him for. If Krishna is giving such spontaneous, surrendered love to the Lord, if Lord is given, if the devotee is giving such unalloyed love to the Lord responds in the same way. And then you can give examples of the Vrajavasis in Vrindavan, how Krishna was responding to them, their love and their affection. It doesn't mean they're partial, but Krishna naturally will respond according to the love given by his devotees, because that's all he wants. He's looking for the love and devotion. He's not looking for any material qualification that a person may have. Right? And then you can go into deeper into so many examples in the Shastra, right? So you can see how one point can lead to another point. The point of partiality can lead into Krishna reciprocation with his devotees, right? Or it could lead to the point of how Krishna is so merciful even to the demons. You can talk about Putana, how he killed her, but he made her a mother, right? You can talk about Kaliya, how Krishna didn't kill Kaliya because of the intervention of his wives, and how he was such a gracious master. So in this way, one point can lead to another point, and the child is learning how to see things more deeply, and to get a bigger picture of one point, right? And to go into the finer points. Now this, remember I told you in the last seminar, how this creates like critical thinking skills in the child. It gives him assets which are so valuable. No, we all know that the ultimate purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam is to create in us these pure qualities by which we can become a pure devotee. But also it gives all these other academic qualifications, which are so valuable in today's life. Even for children, when they go out into the world and they have to study so many different subject matters which are so materialistic and atheistic, they will never let that affect them, because they've learned the skill of really trying to dig into it and understanding, well, no, this, I cannot accept this because it's not rational. Okay, so we are training them in this way. So we go to text 7 and 8 now of chapter 2. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has given up. So this is Hiranyakashipu still speaking, okay? The Supreme Personality of Godhead has given up his natural tendency of equality towards the demons and the demigods. Although he is the Supreme person now influenced by Maya, he has assumed the form of a boar to please his devotees, the demigods, just as a restless child leans towards someone. I shall therefore sever Lord Vishnu's head from his trunk by my trident, and with the profuse blood from his body, I shall please my brother Hiranyaksha, who was so fond of sucking blood. Thus shall I too be peaceful. So, some interesting points here. He wants to kill Hiranyakashipu wants to kill Vishnu. He thinks he can kill Vishnu. So I asked the children that, do you think he can kill Vishnu? And then they were thinking and they were coming up with all kinds of things. One child said, well, if he kills Vishnu, he will be also dead because he's part and parcel of Vishnu, right? And then on top of that, he's talking about, I'm going to drink his blood, right? Well, one child asked, does Krishna really have blood? Does his body have blood? Well, the spiritual body doesn't have blood. So we discussed about that. So it becomes very, very interesting where children get a chance to give their opinions about Hiranyakashipu's statement here. Is Krishna, another point that is being raised, is Krishna influenced by Maya? Can Krishna be influenced by Maya? Well, if Krishna creates Maya, how can he be influenced by Maya? He's the one who's creating Maya. Maya is his servant. He's above Maya. He's above the modes of nature. And of course, you can always add. As a parent or as a teacher, you can add to that. If you know more, you can give them the knowledge. It's not like we leave it at that discussion level, because after all, the children know only so much, right? And the idea for the teacher to be there is to to expand that thinking. Okay, so you can add to that and say, you can maybe give an example of a spider. How a spider creates a web, but does the spider gets involved, entangled in the web? No, the spider is away above the web, and he can take that web and put it back into his mouth whenever he wants to, because it's made out of his saliva. So in the same way, Krishna creates this material energy, but he can take it back. He's not entangled by it. So if you know more, give it to them, because then their mind expands and they think, wow, this is so amazing. And they remember that next time. Okay. And if you don't, not to worry. This is good enough for them. They've learned so much that they didn't know before. It's not like you have to know everything. But if you have a chance to read purports ahead of time, that'll be great. And on the side, you can make points, reminding you when you're doing the discussion with the children, okay, this is what I can ask. This is where I'm at, It reminds you, it gives you reminders. So it's great, if you can, because it will help you also develop your love for Srimad Bhagavatam. When you take time and actually read it on your own, it's going to give you greater pleasure when you do it with the children, because it's really going to, each time when I would do this one story, for example, each time I would get newer and newer meanings. I may have done it for 10 years, but yet I get fresh meanings, each time I do it. So this is the nature of Bhagavatam. It'll expand and expand and expand. Okay, so text 9. When the root of the tree is cut and the tree falls down, its branches and twigs automatically dry up. Similarly, when I have killed this diplomatic Vishnu, the demigods, for whom Lord Vishnu is the life and soul, will lose the source of their life and wither away. So I may skip a few verses because I won't have enough time to go through all the verses, but we don't skip. When we do it with the children, we keep on reading and we don't skip, but we don't have to stop at every verse, as you've already seen it, for discussion. Okay, it's nice to read through all the verses and not skip, okay, with the children. So we will read the next one, which is text 10. When I'm engaged in the business of killing Lord Vishnu, go down to the planet Earth, which is flourishing due to Brahmanical culture and a Kshatriya government. These people engage in austerity, sacrifice, Vedic study, regulative vows, and charity. Destroy all the people thus engaged. So again, we can start looking at his demoniac nature, his destructive nature. For the very, very, for the children who are ready for it, you can talk about how this kind of destructive nature is really in the mode of ignorance, how actually even this destructive quality is actually coming from Krishna. When Krishna, in the form of Lord Shiva, he destroys the universe, that's the destructive side of Krishna, right? And so, but he does it for a very good purpose. His destruction is not the destruction in the material world, where people kill each other, destroy each other for sense gratification that I mentioned earlier, right? So, but Krishna's destruction is for the welfare of human society, right? When Krishna kills, is for the welfare. But here we see Hiranyakashipu destroying for the purpose of his own false ego. So we can compare that destruction, is not in itself bad if it's done for the right purpose. Sometimes the kings have to kill a murderer for his own good, right? So that kind of destruction is not bad. But this destruction is bad. Why? Because it's against principles, religious principles. So we can go that way, or if you don't want to, you can discuss other things that will be revealed in, or you can discuss it here, about Brahmanical culture. What is Brahmanical culture? And this becomes a nice point of discussion with the children. We can ask them, what is Vedic culture? What does it really mean? What are some of the things that are necessary in a Krishna conscious culture? And they will start thinking. And they will give different points, right? For example, one should worship Krishna. That's an important part in this Vedic culture. Then one should worship devotees, brahmanas. One should protect them. And because they're very, very important, very, very special. Because they know Shastra and they give the knowledge of the Shastras to others. So in this way, they are so important for spreading Krishna consciousness in the world. That's why they're important, because they give us knowledge. They give us the tools by which we can become good devotees. So they're protected, right? And then, of course, protecting cows. How the cow, just by protecting cows, one can live, one can maintain one's body and one's mind and nourish one's brain tissues by this wonderful thing called milk, right? And so we can talk about that a little bit here, and there'll be more verses where we'll talk about the cow, protection of cows. So we'll go to the next one, and here Hiranyakashipu talks about the different people in the Varna ashram system, the different social classes, the Kshatriyas, the Brahmanas, the Vaishyas, and the Shudras. And you can talk from your own knowledge. If you haven't been able to read anything in the pulpit, you can talk about what is the duty of a, Kshatriya, why he's guided by the Brahmanas, why that is so important, right? So the Hiranyakashipu's idea of killing Brahmanas was to leave the Kshatriyas without any good advice, without any good incentive to do Vedic religious activities, because that's the advice that Brahmanas give. So if the Brahmanas are all killed, the Kshatriyas will also naturally fall down, right? So this is the idea. So that gives us an opportunity to talk about the duties of a leader in society, how he has a duty to spread God consciousness in his kingdom, in his country, because that will make a good society, a peaceful society, a happy society. Otherwise, the king carries the karma of all the people, of the sins of his people. So we can talk about that, just the duties of a good leader, and that good leader is not just in a country. A good leader means being a good parent. Good leader means having responsibility as a teacher. So a good leader also means being a good brother or sister to the younger ones. So in this way, we can bring it down to their understanding and to the level of how these qualities are so important. So there's no limit to discussion of how we can take one thing to another. The next text is 12. Immediately go wherever there's good protection for the cows and brahmanas, and wherever the Vedas are studied in terms of varnashram principles. Set fire to those places and cut from the roots the trees there, which are the source of life. So here we can introduce the killing of trees, how sinful that is. And it becomes a very interesting discussion for the children, because they really like to hear about, trees and plants, and whether trees feel hurt, whether they have life. They may not even know that trees have souls, how they do feel pain. I remember doing a discussion how do we know that trees have a soul, and whether the trees can actually see and hear. And if they study in nature, then we can see that a tree has eyes, and how a tree will, if there's an obstruction, then a tree will curve around its branches around that obstruction, or it will, in order to get sunlight, it'll keep growing and keep finding ways to pierce through the dark foliage to get sunlight. Obviously, the trees has senses, right? So in this way, we talk about the perspective of the tree, and of course, you can go much, much deeper than that, how the tree, even though it has soul, the consciousness is not so developed versus an animal. So you see how deep one can go. The consciousness of a tree versus the consciousness of an animal versus the consciousness of a human. What is the difference? Yet all of them are equal spiritually, right? An animal has consciousness which is bigger, more developed than a tree, because it can feel more. And it's just the limit. There's no limit to this, how it can feel, when you cut it. It has pain, it has blood, it cries in agony for its children, right? Very similar to humans. So in this way, we can help them understand and develop that empathy of feeling compassion for and seeing everybody as spirit souls, and being very conscious of the fact of not killing even an ant or unnecessarily plucking branches or trees, understanding that they have spirit souls and they have just a right to live as we have a right to live. So it creates a very nice, so even though this is a story of a demon who's trying to do such demoniac things, but yet it can bring out the contrast of a compassionate, saintly person who lives just in the opposite way, right? So it doesn't have to be one-sided. It's very nice to train children by contrast, so that they see the positive side as well as the negative side of life, right? And it's important for them to see the negative also. Unless they understand the nature of this material life and the sufferings that are being imposed by people who are very demoniac, how will they understand the value of the other side, right? And the best way to learn about this material life is through Shastra, not by going there and experiencing, because that's a horrible way to learn, through experience. But to hear but to experience through hearing is very, very good way, and one is protected. The child is protected, but at the same time exposed to all the problems in material life. Just like Prahlad, he had so much deep knowledge. He's going to be preaching to his friends, and to his father he preached, right? And yet he, in a way that as though he knew everything about material life, but he was just a child. He had not experienced anything, but he had become so wise just through Shruti, just for this opportunity to be able to hear, right? So, yeah. And then we'll go to the next one. We'll skip the next one, but remember, you're going to read everything. So here we get a picture of Hiranyakashipu's, the extent of his violent behavior, right? Okay, I'll read 14. The demons set fire to the cities, villages, pasturing grounds, cow pens, gardens, agricultural fields, and natural forests. They burned the hermitages of the saintly persons, the important mines that produced valuable metals, the residential quarters of the agriculturals, the mountain villages, and the villages of the cow protectors, the cowherd men. They also burned the government capitals. Some of the demons took digging instruments and broke down the bridges, the protective walls, and the gates, gopuras, of the cities. Some took axes and began cutting the important trees that produced mango and jackfruit and other sources of food. Some of the demons took firebrands and set fire to the residential quarters of the citizens. So now that gives a pretty good picture of what he's doing. And here we can bring in many things. I forgot to mention earlier that we discussed at length about cow protection, and I talked about, the cow slaughter that's going on, especially in the West. We can see that this, America consumes more meat than the rest of the world combined. Here, people eat 3 times a day. So there's a lot of cow slaughter. And so naturally there's slaughterhouses here. And of course in India also, it's like India has become the second biggest exporter of beef, believe it or not, second biggest exporter of beef. So we can talk about that and as much as we want to openly, the negatives of killing cows and how she's a mother, and the kind of reaction one gets through killing cows, and then we can talk about how, when the types of killing people do, when and the cruel way they do it, just so they understand. And also how when the calves are taken away from the mother cow, how cruel that is, that when they're separated forcefully, and and they're sent to and then after the cow cannot give milk, she's sent to the slaughterhouse immediately, right? And then you can talk about, and Prabhupada talks in the pulpit, how, that's why we cannot understand why there's so many wars and why people have to have wars. And it doesn't make sense why people fight with one another. And then how young people are taken away from their mothers to go and fight in a war, just like the calves were taken away from the mother cows, right? So in this way, they can make a contrast, they can make a context why there's so much suffering in the world. Is because of our own actions, right? Because we've done that. We've hurt a mother who sustains everyone, and we've treated her in this horrible way. So naturally, this is going to be a reaction. And then we talked about environment, because here we see Hiranyakashipu destroying everything, the mines, the trees, and just about destroying anything natural out there. And then we can talk about how how people are, so many countries are so rich, either through oil or through technology or whatever, there's so much opulence. But is this real opulence? In other words, is this opulence that is going to sustain, that is going to stay? Prabhupada explains how this opulence is never going to be, one cannot maintain. Why? Because it is born out of exploitation, out of fear, out of exploitation. And that's why it will not last. It's very superficial. But opulence, which comes when we nourish the earth with the manure coming from the cows, the natural fertilizers, where cow works in harmony with Mother Earth, who's herself a cow, when they work together, then it creates that environment which is so conducive for a happy life, for a peaceful life, or for maintaining the purpose of human life, for self-realization, right? So we can talk about environment and the opulence in today's society, how it is really very superficial, right? An opulence that is born out of exploitation of Mother Earth, digging relentlessly for the purpose of sense gratification, for making money, using artificial chemicals, fertilizers, which ruin the body. So, but what is natural wealth? And then Prabhupada explains in other purpose how natural wealth means the wealth that comes from the land, from protection of cows. We saw, right, in Vrindavan Leela, Nand Maharaj, his opulence was the natural kind of opulence. And that opulence never goes away. Krishna is permanent, is never destroyed with time. It's an opulence that makes people happy. It's an opulence that helps people become Krishna conscious. So in this way, we can go very, very deep and make it very, very nice and soothing for the child to understand, yes, this is this wonderful Vedic culture that Prabhupada gave us. So that's why we have so many nice gaushalas, and then you can always bring it back to the level of ISKCON, how we're trying to make a change in the world due to the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Okay, so that kind of sums up this part of the chapter. So the chapter takes a drastic turn now and the scene totally changes. Okay, so what I do after I finish this part with the children, which pretty much takes one class, okay, or maybe two, generally I try to do it in one class, maybe in an hour, or if it takes longer, it's fine. And then but after every class, I leave like 10 to 15 minutes for a realizations class, where every child gets the opportunity to share with the others what he thinks, what he's learned from this chapter, what he likes, what he or she likes about this, what has struck him, as being wow, anything, and make the child very comfortable to be able to speak anything. And even if the child is speaking something very simple or maybe it doesn't make sense, you immediately applaud it and try to add to it. If it's incomplete, just add to it and make the child feel, wow, his point was so important, so amazing. And then he or she gets an encouragement, wow, I can speak, I can give my feelings, it's so valuable. And then another child might make a very deep point, which is very nice for everybody to hear. Let not one child dominate the discussion. Everybody gets a time equally, nicely, where everybody is pulled up to a level where she or feels needed and wanted. Okay, and it's amazing during this realizations class how much they come through, how deep they've gone. It's each time I do it, I'm so shocked the level of their depth, that they go deeper and deeper into the story. So after we do that, then we are ready to begin the next part, which will be another class, and which I will show you is so very different here. It will take a complete turn. As you know, you may have already read here. I may not read everything here, but I just want to kind of sum it up for you, but maybe read a few verses. We'll see how the time goes. But here we see that Hiranyakashipu turns his attention from giving these instructions to his followers to his immediate business, which is he has to deal with the grief that is permeating through his relatives, in particular his mother, Diti, who's very devastated by the death of her son, Hiranyaksha, and his wife, Hiranyaksha's wife, Rishabhanu, and all his nephews. So we see how Hiranyakashipu is very, very learned, and it comes as a shock, and it comes as a shock to all the children. She says, what? Here's this demon, I just heard about him wanting to kill everybody, but he's talking about profound philosophy. How is that possible? He knows so much. And that led into a discussion. How is it possible? Can a demon know so much? And what does that mean? Is he a devotee then? Well, he's talking such pure philosophy. And if you read in the purport, Prabhupada really actually, he extols, he praises this philosophy, and he expands on it, and he glorifies it, right? So what does that mean? He's a devotee? Apparently he's not, but yet, how do we see it then? So everybody is kind of giving their opinion, some of them, that, oh, well, it's the reason why he cannot be a devotee because he hated Vishnu, one child says, or another child says that, well, because he's always thinking about himself, or it's all kinds of answers you get, right? And it's all correct. Basically, it's all correct. Well, one child may come up with this idea that, well, he never really followed the instructions of Vishnu. It kind of hits the heart of the point, right? That he never applied this knowledge in his life. What was the conclusion? In other words, what was it? You can bring that up. Like, what was the conclusion of all his preaching? That Vishnu is horrible, that Vishnu is a demon. Vishnu is envious. I want to kill Vishnu. If that's the conclusion of all his preaching, then obviously he's still a demon. Because the conclusion of all the Shastra is that ultimately Supreme Krishna is the Supreme Lord, and he's all benevolent and he's all wonderful, right? So in this way, we discuss that after a few verses, not right away, because they haven't really read as yet his kind of what he's preaching, right? So so we see here yeah, so anyway, then the relatives are lamenting, and I remember bringing up the point of do devotees do devotees lament? So if we understand that everybody is a spirit soul and not the body, so we cannot lament, because we know the person really hasn't died. So do devotees lament? And that brings a very deep point. So why do devotees lament at the death of another devotee? If we are the spirit soul and not this body, why do we lament? So again, it raises some very deep questions, and they will come up with all kinds of answers. And the point is that the devotees lament because they are separated from the association for this other devotee, who's also a devotee of the Lord. and he misses that association. Or the parent, or when a child suddenly, like in the case of Arjuna, when he heard Abhimanyu's death, he was lamenting. And somebody asked Prabhupada that isn't a devotee not supposed to lament? So why is he lamenting? Well, then he said, Prabhupada answered that he's lamenting his service towards his service as a parent in helping him become Krishna conscious. You see, so that lamentation is very, very different from the lamentation in terms of the body that these relatives are exhibiting, right? That will be elaborated further when, in this section, when Hiranyakashipu gives the example of the king who died in battle and all his queens were lamenting uh, at the dead body of their husband, and they were not letting the dead body be cremated because they were lamenting and lamenting, and they wouldn't allow the body. In that point, Yamaraj, who comes as a young boy, he preaches to the queens, chastising them that how can you, if you think that your husband has left you, well, he's still here with all his everything, with his clothes and jewelry and ornaments. Why are you lamenting then if he's still here? Obviously, you're lamenting for that person who actually you never saw. You actually never knew your husband because he's apparently his body is still here, but this he was not his body, he was somebody else, and that's something else you never knew who he was. So in this way, he's prodding them to understand that actually their husband is not dead. He's actually still alive because it was the soul that's left the body. Okay, and this way he helps them to get over their bodily concept of life. So I'll read you a couple verses here just to bring you some points here. So many points come through. Okay. A nice verse that I'll bring up here. Of course, we are reading, remember, we're reading through all the verses. There will be some points here and there to discuss. One verse in particular is text 35. The time was appropriate for the body to be burned, but the queens, not allowing it to be taken away, continued lamenting for the dead body, which they kept on their laps. In the meantime, the sun completed the movements, was setting in the west. So they were not allowing. So here, a nice puppet. You could even read it with the children. Once in a while, it's okay to read the puppets together, but not all the puppets. So here, Prabhupada explains, or if you've read it before, you can bring these points to them, that he's talking about, he's giving the example of the cow, comparing this kind of intelligence to an animal's intelligence, where the mother cow gives milk only when her calf has drunk milk from her. But the calf cannot drink all the milk. So there's some people who think, well, it's cruel to drink milk. It's bad to drink milk because mother, it's for the calves. But actually the calves cannot drink all the milk. If the calf were to drink all the milk, she would die, right? And also the cow doesn't drink her own milk. The cow doesn't drink milk, right? It eats grass. So the milk is meant for consumption for the human beings, and so in this way, but the cow gives milk only when the little baby had drunk and she feels those motherly instincts, right? And so when the calf dies due to some natural causes, then in India, they will take the dead body of the calf and bring it to the mother cow, and she licks that body thinking that the cow this is a baby and she gives milk. In other words, she doesn't know that the soul has left that little body, right? So this is called the bodily conception of life. So in this way, it comes across through an example like this, the child can understand better, right? And then you can talk about, if you have more knowledge about this, you can expand on the fact that Prabhupada talks in the puppet about scientists, how they have wanting to freeze body, thinking that in future they will come to life. But no matter how long they wait, it'll never come back to life. So many points, so many arguments you can make here, devil's advocate you can play, about the scientists, how they want to create life. They want to create life from chemicals, right? they think that they can make a chicken from an egg or something. And Prabhupada challenges them if they can even make an egg, right? You give them all the chemicals, can you make an egg from which a chicken can hatch, right? This way, one can go back and forth. One can be the scientist, one can be a materialist, scientist, and the other one can be a devotee, right? And you can make children into groups like that. After you finish the chapter, you can do that. And then they recollect what they've learned in the chapter, different, or you can do devil's advocate with a materialist who doesn't believe there's a soul, and the other side, a devotee who believes there is a soul. And this way you can argue back and forth. And it's so much fun. They enjoy this kind of debate and these arguments, and it makes them very, very strong. And then remember, you can always add, and you can expand, and you can expand, and you can expand like this. So in this way, children become very, very excited, and they feel challenged, they feel happy. It's not a monotonous thing. Bhagavatam does not become a monotonous reading, just a reading from one person. No, it becomes it provides a forum for exciting discussion to take place. Okay, so I'm going to, I think we'll stop here and ask for questions. Okay, so I'm going to, and here Hiranyakashipu also gives another story, and that is of the hunter. And this story, I think, comes from Yamaraj. So it's a story within a story of the Kulinga birds. How the male Kulinga bird is killed by the hunter after he's standing there lamenting for his wife, who has been already killed by the hunter. And some very deep points can be raised in that how we have to take care of our own spiritual life before we can help others, right? So important to help ourselves and not forget that that we should take care of our sadhana and things like that, so we can bring it to that level for their children. And how ultimate, another point that is raised in the story is how Krishna is the ultimate protector. Our parents, the soldier at war, or the police, they can protect us, but not, they can be instruments, but not help us ultimately, because they themselves are afraid of dying. So how can they protect us? And how Krishna is the ultimate protector. And we can bring examples from Shastra. So many things are there. Okay, so here I will stop my presentation, and I will open it for questions from people, from everyone. Give me 1 minute while I unmute. So I am, thank you very much for allowing me to make this presentation. So I would like, if there's any questions there, I can take some questions now. Hare Krishna. There are some messages. Wait. Okay. So the first question, thank you for writing it down here so I can read from it. Thank you. Okay, when talking about cow protection and living close to nature, when we are in a situation that we are not able to walk and talk, this will not produce guilty feeling in children? Please enlighten Mataji. Even if I do have the guilty feeling, I'm not able to walk the talk regarding to Go Seva. Oh, no, that's okay. We are, not everybody is in a position to do Go Seva. For example, in the town that I live, you're not even allowed to do Go Seva. In other words, you're not allowed to even keep cows here. It's a city. So how can we do Go Seva? But we can assist others who are doing Go Seva. We can, there's a program here in Virginia in the New Vrindavan community in America, where children are allowed to adopt cows. They take a cow and they adopt, and they send the progress of that little cow to that child, and give progress as to how the cow is doing, and the parents send some donation, every year for that cow. So we can engage them in go seva in this way. If we cannot directly do it, there's no reason to feel guilty. Everybody has their own seva, their own situation, the ways in which they do seva. Some devotees do preaching, they preach in bhakti rikshas. Some devotees just cook for the devotees, and every seva is glorious. So no, the thing is that there are 4 classes of people, and there's the Vaishya community who does Gau Seva, and we talk about how we can talk about the environment, like I said. We can talk about Gau Seva. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, so let me go to the next one. Yeah. So that is. I hope that answers the question for that Mataji. And if not, then she can send me another question. But I will continue taking questions. How to make them, oops. So, it would have been better to put it on WhatsApp, but that's okay. Okay. Oh. Mm. I don't know how to access that. Okay, here it is. Here it is. How to make them understand that there is rebirth. Oh, that's just like we have 4 seasons. Okay, there's first there's summer, then there's the fall, there's winter, right? Then there's spring. So the 4 seasons come in sequence, and there's never a time where we don't have these 4 seasons. This is how nature works, right? In the same way, this process of birth, old age, death, disease, and then again birth. So this is a very natural phenomena that happens all over material life. Everywhere is going through this process of birth and death, and humans also, because the way they understand rebirth is by helping them understand the concept of the soul in the body, and this comes very well in this chapter of Hiranyakashipu. So the next question I'll take. About another one had a question about onions and garlic, that onion and garlic comes under the category of vegetables. So, but why devotees cannot eat it? So it's a problem telling them that it's a part of mood of ignorance. It becomes too philosophical. How to explain that to them? The fact of why onions and garlic is bad, that devotees don't eat. Well, it's because it's very pungent. It's very strong. There's many different ways to look at it. When people, at least in the West, when they eat onions, like suppose they put it in their meat burgers and things, then they immediately go to the bathroom to brush their teeth before they go back to work, right? Because it's very, very strong. It's very, very pungent. So it has to be in the mode of passion because it's very strong, right? And it's so therefore it's not in the mode of goodness. Krishna doesn't like to eat with onions and garlic in it. It's still better than eating, eggs and meat, obviously, because it's a vegetable. So it's a process. How much do we want to surrender to God, right? So it's a process. So do we want to, now if you love somebody, you want to cook in a way that that person likes that food, right? If somebody wants milk, you're not going to give that person yogurt because that's what he likes, right? So if Krishna likes this way and we want to learn how to love him, then naturally we want to do something that he likes. Krishna likes his food without onions and garlic. So when we become more and more advanced, It's not a problem giving it up, but it can be done. It can be done in stages. So yes, it is a struggle now, but this is what surrender means. This is what surrender means. Okay, so in this way we can take them through that. Okay, the next question is, can children and young adults have milk and milk products even when unethically procured? Yes, if you offer it to Krishna. Of course, the best thing is to drink ahimsa milk. Okay, if you can get milk from gaushalas, which devotees have over there, or a temple may have a gaushala, nothing like it. Because here the milk is coming from these peaceful cows who are not exploited, right? But suppose you don't have that facility and you have to buy outside milk. Unfortunately, is one has to get that milk. Then one understands that if that milk is offered to the Lord, and we take it as prasadam milk, obviously Krishna is going to forgive us, and he's going to purify that milk, right? So because if we become a vegan, then it's very, very, it can become detrimental to our Krishna consciousness. That's the unfortunate part. Because what happens is, when we have prasadam, when here, when devotees, when new people come, they get so attracted by the prasadam, right? When they eat that Sunday feast and everything oozing with wonderful ghee and sweet things, and and fried pakoras and yogurt dishes and goranga potatoes steeped in yogurt, all these things, then naturally a vegan is going to become very, very internally. He's going to feel like, wow, look at them. How can they eat this? And that may create a negativity for Krishna consciousness, So it becomes a little bit risky to become a vegan. No, we have to appreciate Krishna Prasadam, food that has been honored by the Lord, eaten by the Lord, and we accept it. And it's a much better way than becoming a vegan and denying this wonderful sanctified food that the Lord has given us. Okay, so this is my feeling about that. I know there's other feelings um, on that. As long as if you for I've seen very, very advanced devotees become vegans. Now their mentality is different, but for us, I think it would be a little bit on the risky level where we for at our level, it's not a good idea. Okay, and those devotees who are vegans, they get ahimsa milk, and they are and all the prasadam is cooked in ahimsa milk. For example, in Gita Nagari farm and many other places in Hungary, they're cooking with ahimsa milk, and all the devotees are eating from that ahimsa milk. But there are so many temples all over Chicago, and many, many temples, they don't have facility for that, and they do offer the Lord all kinds of wonderful dairy sweets and food. Okay, so let's go on to another question. I'm basically from agricultural family. My father had around 15 cows. In my village, 5 years back, someone fired our cow shed. Someone fired our cow shed. All 13 cows were died. Still, my family couldn't able to forget the incident. We are protecting by these kinds of incidents happens. How to overcome such kind of, it's not really clear, but I think I get an idea. Yeah, I mean, this was very, very, I'm sure it was very, very painful for your parents to see that, how horrible it was. And it's very painful. So I can totally understand that. And the way to get over this incident is to read about Krishna and his love for cows, and to understand and to read about what's happening in the world. I mean, there are millions and millions of cows being slaughtered everywhere. They're already being slaughtered um, in a very, very merciless way. They are being killed every day, So in this way, we can understand that this is the nature of material world, and how we can avoid it by cultivating our spirit of Krishna consciousness And this way, Krishna is pleased with us. Okay. Okay. So there's some questions here which are not related, but let me go ahead and answer them. During pregnancy time, how a pregnant woman can increase her Krishna consciousness even though her health is not that supportive? Well, that's that I totally have gone through that period, and I understand. So the body is not supportive, so you can do what you can, what your body can allow. But hearing at this time is very, very important. If you don't have anybody to read out to you, or you don't have an association of other devotees, when you're reading yourself through Shastra, try to read loudly rather than in your mind, so your baby in your womb can actually hear that, just like Prahlad heard. So if you can increase your hearing and chanting in some way or the other, then it will be very nice, because that will really help you to cultivate that mode of Krishna consciousness, which is very, very important at this time, because we are developing the Krishna consciousness of the child, especially from 7th month onwards. Very, very important from now on. Okay, next question. Do you have any examples of games and exercises that we can do to introduce some concepts? I had recently given kids in my Krishna consciousness story class to do an exercise on how to draw how you see Krishna as a cause of all causes. But I'm limited in my ideas and need help. Okay. Okay, yeah. Well, if you're artistic, then it really helps. But there's some ideas. Like, for example, when I was doing the first canto, first chapter with the children, then there was this. The first verse of the Bhagavatam goes into the nature of the absolute truth. It's a very big verse, very famous verse, and so the way I did it is by. Okay. Hare Krishna, please mute yourself. Please mute yourself. How I asked them to make a mind map, and if you go into the internet, it'll tell you what is the mind map, or it's also called a spider's diagram, where there's a central bubble and then there's bubbles around it, and you can the central bubble, you can put the theme there. Krishna is the absolute truth, and then the surrounding bubbles are the qualities of Krishna. So, and that the first verse, the understanding of the first verse is taken care of by this diagram, because it's surrounded by Krishna's qualities. Krishna is the cause of all causes. Krishna is independent. Krishna is beyond illusion, all these things. And then you take each one and you discuss it. What does it mean to be the cause of all causes? And you can put that in picture also. Krishna, Vishnu lying on the ocean, he's breathing out all these universes from his pores, and so that picture can be shown as the cause of all causes. How ultimately from Vishnu everything is coming, Brahma is coming, and then from Brahma everybody else is coming, right? The Prajapatis, and then the demigods, and then the sages, and then the living entities, and then the animals, and the planets. How from the higher intelligence, lower intelligence is coming, and from Mahavishnu is not the original. Beyond that, you can draw Krishna playing his flute. So in this way, there's ample pictures that Prabhupada kindly has given in the Bhagavatam books, that you can take advantage of them. If you cannot think of your own ideas, take advantage from all this beautiful artwork that's provided by ISKCON, and find ways of how to use this artwork to expand the children's visualization of these concepts. Okay. So some always helps, especially in very highly philosophical chapters like the first canto. Definitely it will help in that process of understanding. Okay, and then you can also ask people who are very artistic to give you ideas. In this way, you can bring it down to their level, if that's how But I've noticed that a little bit of artwork is enough, and then you start discussing like that, and that also helps. In this way. Yeah, I'm thinking of the first chapter, and I remember doing that, the Forest of Naimisharanya. That is the first chapter where the story begins, where the sages are talking to Sutta Goswami and accepts him as a spiritual master. I remember we drew a beautiful forest of, the children drew a beautiful forest of Naimisharanya, and with all the sages sitting there. And yeah, and in this way, and then of course the qualities of Sutta Goswami was discussed, and that you can also do it visually, I mean, through drawings. And in the end, they may, there's a suggestion of making, well, this is through my guidebook. Remember in the first seminar, I showed you the different books we are making, creating as a group. We are on the 4th canto now. And so the first canto book gives all these beautiful ideas of artwork. Now, if you have that book, that will surely, definitely help in that process, because this is where I got all the, when we created these, I got all the ideas. And in the end, the children make a ship where all the sages are sitting on the ship, and Sutta Goswami is the captain, the leader, and the sail is the scriptures, the wind. It was beautiful. And they made this big thing out of paper and cardboard and things like that, and they had it float on the river, on the water, I mean. So this way, you can get ideas from the book, from the guidebook, if you have, them. Okay, so there's many, many ways how you can make it very, very creative for your child, depending on the age group, because only the older age group will take through, philosophy, deep philosophy, but the younger ones will need some more of that. But also, starting the age of, for 6, they're able, or 7, they're able to just sit through a discussion class with some, with some visualization, but they don't need a whole lot. Okay, so hopefully this answers your question. I will go on to the next question. While describing about Arjuna's lamentation at the time of Abhimanyu's death, you explained that he's missing his service to his son. It was really a touching message. Can you explain more about this? Yes, just that Arjuna lamentation. He was such a dear devotee of the Lord. We can see that Krishna was his Sakha, right? His very dear friend, and you can see the mood of the Pandavas, how they were so surrendered to the Lord, even in the most difficult times, which is pretty much throughout their life until the end, until they won the war, and then they stayed back after that. But then they were ready to retire after that. Their whole life was a life of suffering, but yet how close Arjuna was to Krishna, right? He was very, very dear to him. How the Pandavas actually had no reason to stick around once Krishna left. They didn't relish. They didn't want to relish all their beautiful kingdom that they had won after so much trouble. They didn't care for that. They were ready to leave, because for them Krishna was life and soul, right? So this is how a devotee feels towards the Lord and his devotees. So Abhimanyu was another great devotee, and this is how Arjuna is feeling towards another devotee. The same kind of affection, the same kind of sweetness a devotee feels towards another devotees. Krishna says that you cannot really be my devotee. You have to be a devotee of my devotee, and then you become very dear to me, right? So in this way, when we become servant of the servant of the servant, then we become very, very dear to Krishna. Okay. So in this way, we can understand. Okay, so next one is to, okay, I'm missing the top part here. What is that? Is to check the child educational. No, this is something I don't have the full question here. What is it? Yeah, here it is. Is it to be advisable to teach all subjects just from the Srimad Bhagavatam? How important is it to check a child's educational development with a regular school curriculum and testing? Very good question. So what you do is, even if you're teaching your child through Srimad Bhagavatam, you still do testing. And in every country, in every city, there's a different testing system. So find out what is required in your area, the kind of testing that's available to you, and definitely get them tested, because that will give you the confidence where your child is at. When I was teaching my child language arts entirely through the Bhagavatam, they have an annual exam here, which is given to homeschoolers, where you can go and test your child. And always the child will way above other public school kids, 2 or 3 grades above that. And that was just the result of teaching through Bhagavatam. Because Prabhupada said the English is master's and PhD level. However, we must be very careful because, if your country doesn't allow that and they require that you do other secular subjects, then you can go ahead and do it. But if homeschooling is allowed there and you want to do it primarily to Bhagavatam, it's also okay to do it that way, But Bhagavatam must be made an important part of your curriculum, whether the child is going to school or not going to school. But yes, I did it with the Bhagavatam, and I also did testing, and and I did maths for them, which became the basis for all science subjects. So basically, my curriculum was Bhagavatam for all the English language arts, and math for all the science subjects. I focused on these two, and then later on, when they had to go to college, they learned many other subject matters after that, and they had no problem doing that because they got the foundation really, really strong through the Bhagavatam. Like Prabhupada said, I mentioned the earlier seminar, how Prabhupada says that Srimad Bhagavatam covers every subject matter of the world. And he even went and named all of them, right? So it's a fact. It's a fact. It will cover everything: history, social studies, anthropology, philosophy, everything will be covered. So if you give training through Bhagavatam, then when they do have to do other subjects, they will not have a problem. If you have to do this plus secular subjects together right now, that's okay. You can do both, okay? So this is, I hope that's answered your question about that. Okay. Okay, next question. Hiranyakashipu hid Mother Earth into the Hiranyaksha hid Mother Earth into the depths of the ocean, where it is a different universe. Yeah, it's the Garbhodaksh ocean, and we better we don't get into it right now because we have a lot here, many questions that I need to answer. Okay, so maybe you can ask somebody on that. Next question: what did Shri Krishna do that made Hiranyakashipu jealous of him? Oh, Krishna killed his brother Hiranyaksha in the third canto, and so as a brother he felt angry with he wanted to take revenge from him because Vishnu killed his brother. So that was, this is how a materialist would behave, who has no faith in the Lord, right? In fact, Hiranyaksha was very lucky because he got back to go back to Godhead, right? He was Jaya and Vijay, one of them. Okay, next question. How to encourage kids to do chanting in the morning? Um, well, don't push them very hard. But what you do is you start out with a short morning program. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever you can do, where you sing all the prayers that we sing to our guru, and Nasinga prayers and Tulsi Puja and all these, and Guru Puja. We do all that, and then we can do some Srimad Bhagavatam with them, if possible, in the morning, because when we bathe our intelligence with the beautiful verses and purports in the scriptures, when you bring it to our children in this way, then chanting becomes easier, japa becomes easier when the mind is soaked with Krishna Katha, So in other words, hearing must go on with the chanting, must be there with the chanting, you see. So if you did Bhagavatam, like I mentioned, the process that I mentioned with them, then chanting becomes really a lot better and easier for them to manage, okay? So I would encourage you to read Srimad Bhagavatam if they are not getting any taste in chanting. The other thing I mentioned in the last seminar, I may have mentioned, is that we chant with them. When we chant with them, they feel better because they don't feel it like it's a punishment that they've been given by their parents. And if they don't do, they'll be punished, or if they do it, they'll be rewarded. We don't want to set up the chanting in that mood. We want them to experience the joy of chanting, how wonderful it is, how devotees can chant together. Of course, right now there's a lockdown and things, but when we get a chance again, getting association with each other and chanting together is very nice, especially on Ekadashi days. You can make that as a usual thing, which encourages the children to also sit with their parents and chant, because when they see their parents chanting more rounds on Ekadashi, they themselves, their number of rounds go up. But don't push them very hard, if they get too pushed very hard, they become very negative. Okay. Sometimes children go very slow on the number of rounds, very slow, but then as they get older, they double up really fast. So just do see what you can, but keep on encouraging them though, okay, in a very, very positive manner. Okay. How to manage the Srimad Bhagavatam session with kids at home class with different age groups, say for example 6 years old and 14 years old. And I talked in length about that in my first seminar. So I've sent an YouTube clipping for that class to all of you in the Middle East. So if you like, you can hear that and get an idea of the different age groups and how we tackle with that and how we do that. So I would encourage you to hear that seminar because I talk in great length about that. The basic idea here is to make it simpler for the younger ones and to make it deeper for the older ones. But the process is the same. We take turns reading the translations. Now, if a younger child is having a problem reading fluently, then we let her read or him read occasionally. And if it's a mixed group of older and younger ones, then the older ones can read, continuously, like whenever their turn comes, and the younger one can skip. And because otherwise the process really gets slowed down. The process of discussion becomes very, very slow because the younger one, it becomes a reading session, and we don't want that. If there's a lot of older kids also in that group, we want to make it a discussion. So we don't allow the younger ones to read, but we allow the older ones to read. But the younger ones, so that they don't feel left out, they get a lot of chance to participate in the discussion. So to the younger ones, we ask simpler questions so they feel included. And the older ones, of course, they get to answer the more difficult questions. But the younger ones, they benefit a lot by listening, right? So it can be done easily as long as they are not disturbing the whole discussion process, the younger ones. So sometimes we may have to keep them quiet by engaging their minds or their hands in some coloring activity where they're quietly coloring, but they're also listening. That's also, and we can still continue with them. You have to engage them. The children, they are very fidgety, they love to play and all these things. So see in creative ways how you can make them quiet, but also engaged so they can hear. And believe me, they hear a lot. Because when the time for realization comes, they come with the most amazing realizations. Okay, next one. In the verses we read just now, in spite of addressing the Lord as Supreme Person, why he wants to kill him. Oh, yes. Because he's learned, right? All these demons were very learned in Shastra. So he understands. But because of his false ego, he thinks he's bigger than him. That's all. He knows Vishnu is powerful. Otherwise, how could he have killed his brother Hiranyaksha? He knows that, right? So, he knows that. But that he's a powerful personality. But he just cannot believe that he can be more powerful than himself. That's his anartha. That's his false ego. That's why he wants to kill him. Next question. Kids are more attached to gadgets, and so it is difficult to engage them spiritually, like chanting or reading. How to motivate them? Yes, that's a good question, because with the internet explosion, children want everything through the internet. In one of my other general seminars, I talk about internet and how detrimental it is, if it's given without any control, how there should be restriction on that because they can't think in any other way. They lose the taste for reading and things like you're saying that they lose a taste for that. So internet is important. And I think in the seminar I talk about that. Somebody asked a question about internet, how it must be done within reason. It should be used as a tool and not as, as something that we live with all the time and ongoing, always the on mode, and depending on that. So yes, how do we engage them in that is by association, by coming together as a family, chanting together, reading and discussing together. These family activities are very, very beneficial, especially at this time also when you're stuck together, all of you. And it's such a nice, you can make so much out of this time, right? And then when it opens up, engaging them with other programs, with other children programs, where they all get to come together and study Shastra or get a taste for Krishna consciousness. The older children can be given an opportunity, maybe you can take them to India and they can do Bhakti Shastri one summer. Let them skip school, it's okay one summer. Maybe summer you don't have school there, right? Or whatever. I mean, they don't have those programs in summer. They generally have it during school time, right? So it's okay to skip it. It matters so much to develop our children's spirituality at this time, because this is the time when they're trying to make sense. They're trying to make sense of the world. They're trying to get answers, and if you lose this chance of giving them those answers, we've lost a lot. We've lost the best time in their life, right? Next question. Why was Hiranyakashipu angry with his own son and he hated to hear Lord's names? Why? Well, that's the question Yudhishthira Maharaj asks Narad Muni. How can anyone be angry with a noble son like Prahlad, who absolutely had no bad qualities? He asked the same question. And of course, it's answered by Narad Muni in the sense that this is the nature of a materialist. Anybody who's envious of Krishna, envy has no bounds. The false ego and the pride that comes with it and the anger, and I mentioned earlier how in spite of having all that, he was so dissatisfied. And that's the nature of materialism. The more sense gratification we do, the more dissatisfied we become, the more we become dissatisfied, right? So that's why sense gratification is not good. It has to be accepted with reason, right? There's some amount of sense gratification a person needs, but only with restriction, right? Just like salt. We can take salt. If it's too much salt, it's so bad. If it's too little salt, also we don't like the taste, right? So it has to be just right, because we see that in the case of Hiranyakashipu. Okay, so next question is, okay, next one here. We need to be highly skilled and pay lots of attention to teach small kids, as it requires strong foundation than senior group. Children, okay, so I don't know exactly what the question is here. Teaching children, you mean, I think your question is if you're homeschooling them, yes, we have to teach them how to read, and that requires a lot of attention and time, but it's a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice that we are doing it for a higher purpose. No matter, even if they're going to school, if you're teaching them Bhagavatam, then it's a sacrifice of time, energy, but look at the results, what you're getting. It's not like you're raising good children, but you're also getting results for yourself. We are making advancement along with the children, right? So that kind of sacrifice becomes pure devotional service, which is very, very pleasing to Krishna. When we raise a whole generation of exemplary Vaishnavas, Prabhupada said, that is the glory of our movement, and that is the glory of our country as well, right? But he said that if for some reason or the other, if we neglect even one Vaishnava, then that is a very great loss. Because Vaishnavas are very rare in this world. And these children who are raised in devotee families, they can be very, very empowered children because they're already coming with so much sukriti in their life, in their past lives. So if you give them the opportunity to increase that and make it their last birth, you can imagine during their life how many more they're going to benefit, right? They could make hundreds of devotees because they're getting it from their childbirth, from their childhood. So we should not take it as a painstaking task. It is hard work, but remember that Krishna is recognizing everything that you're doing, and he's very, very happy and grateful for what you're doing. Okay, so we should see it as a service to Krishna. Raising children is like serving deities. It's like service. We are servants of God, and we are serving to raise nice children, and they are also servants of God. Okay, so see it in that mode. It is a sacrifice, but it will have wonderful rewards later on. You may not see it now, but you will see it even now. When we do this process, then we see these children and their happy faces every day, and we see their amazing rewards, the way they speak and the way they've understood. It comes through in their day-to-day behavior, and we become happy in the process. Okay, next question. Here in the Gulf, social interaction in the daytime is very limited for children. Homeschooling is not very popular. Open book distribution or preaching is not allowed to involve the kids in. Is homeschooling advised in isolation where there are hardly few devotees opting for homeschooling? Well, it's again a personal choice, but yes, they do need social outlet. And but if they get like social outlet, doesn't mean that they have to be crowded with children every day for 8 hours a day in school. That doesn't mean social interaction. Social interaction means if they have the facility to interact with different people with different ages, that is the best kind of social interaction. When children can interact during the day with children of different ages, when they interact a lot with adults, especially good adults who have, who are devotees, that is very, very powerful way of interaction, and they can become very, very, they can develop all their social skills through that. It is said that Indira Gandhi, he was not even high school. It's a very material, crude example, but just to make a point, he wasn't even high school educated. But how did she become such a great statesman? Just by standing behind the chair of her father and listening to him, talking to all the people, the diplomats, she gained astute diplomatic learning, and she became a very big politician, right? Of course, she's not, the devotee's heroine, somebody she was. But the point is that learning from adults is necessary for children. Not just this process, this idea of putting them in a classroom situation with 30 other kids. This is a fairly new phenomenon that happened recently, only 50 years ago. The earlier concept of schooling was one teacher with about 10 children in one room with different ages, children of different ages. And it was a tutorial system where a child would go up to the teacher and they would interact one-to-one and discuss and things like that. So anyway, if you even have a few families who are willing to homeschool and they can see each other and have some time together, or on the weekends, it's pretty good. In other words, of course, if your child is the only child at home, it becomes much harder. If you have two children, it does help a lot. So you can see which formula works for you and whether it can work. But we shouldn't be over emphasizing this kind of social interaction. It's not the way it was done for many, many years. Okay, so the natural way is more for children to be exposed. Homeschoolers have a great capacity. They have great maturity in learning because they're interacting with so many types of people, and they have no problem interacting with the world out there and with the adults or younger people. In fact, it is said here, they've done research that homeschoolers are more socially capable than children in public schools. Okay, So anyway, this is a very a decision which is based according to time, place, and circumstance. So I'd encourage you to look into all the aspects and see whether it is possible for you. Okay. Okay, next question. While I say a story and there are sages cursing, sometimes kids feel sages should not get angry or upset. So why do they curse? Rishi Shringi cursed Parikshit Maharaj to die by snake bite. It is very harsh punishment. Yeah, good point. So again, as you read the Bhagavatam, you get, you get many insights that how a devotee's curse is really a benediction. First of all, for example, the four sages in the story of Jay and Vijay, being cursed to become Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. The four sages cursed them to become demons, right? So that became, in a way, it was a benediction for them, even though they had to leave the spiritual world. But it was meant to be a sacrifice because Krishna had a desire to fight, right? So that was the deeper reason why this whole episode happened. So in a way, they were fulfilling the Lord's desire. Okay, but also another aspect we see that how uh, the sages were regretting their curse, why they had cursed. After Vishnu came and spoke to them, they felt very bad that they had cursed them, that they had lost their anger and cursed them, because they realized that devotees are never to be cursed because they are sadhus, right? So they understood their mistake. Yet it did become a benediction for Jay and Vijay. Okay, so in this way, we can see different aspects. Okay, there's so many. Now, Shringi, his curse was very bad, right? Just like Durvasa Muni's curse, when he created that demon to go and kill Ambarish Maharaj, he was, punished for that, right? Till he realized his fault and he asked for forgiveness. So that kind of curse was very bad. What's wrong in telling the child, oh, well, that was a wrong curse, and devotees should not curse like that, right? So so we have to draw contrast. But what is the difficulty for them to, understand that, So Shringi, the way he cursed was wrong, totally wrong. But yet, it was a plan of the Lord, right, for the Bhagavatam to be ultimately spoken. And because he was a child, Krishna forgave him. So again, it was a bad curse. It's accepted in that story that Shringi's curse was unwarranted. It was not needed. Okay, so you have to study these stories, and even if you just read the translation, a few purports, you will understand it completely. If you have question about Shringi, read that story, chapter 18 of that section, right, of the first canto. You will get the answers. So don't be afraid. Just get into it really deeply, and the answers will come, right? The point is that devotees may sometimes curse, but devotees curses are always benedictions. Even the curse of Suruchi to Prahlad became a benediction, didn't it? Due to that, he left home and he saw the Lord face to face. So this is how we see the curses of devotees. When curses basically means chastisement, right? So if a devotee gets angry with me, then I see it as a mercy of the Lord. I see it as a benediction, because that will help me in improving or in something better. So if we learn to see that in this way, we can train our children not to retaliate, but rather to see it as a plan of the Lord. So it goes really deep, these type of things. Next question. My son, he reads slokas on his own, but when we try to correct the wrong pronunciations, he gets angry. How to deal with him? Don't know to appreciate for his attempt to learn on his own. Somewhere fear he may lose interest in reading. You mean shlokas? I don't understand. The Sanskrit shlokas or the English shlokas? So if it's English shlokas, then what happened here? Yeah, sorry, something went wrong. So if it's English shlokas, then just English translations, then you just when you would have to just let him read till he, you find a way to correct her. I don't know. It's just something that you have to work out with him. But eventually he'll come through, I'm sure. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. Okay, next one is next step to realization is implementation. How to put that in practice in children. So there's two sides, the theoretical side and the practical side, and they both have to go together. The theoretical side is what I did today, okay? And the practical side comes in our practical devotional activities, where we get a chance to actually practice those things. The qualities of Prahlad. How do we practice that in day-to-day life? Well, it will naturally come. Please don't get after your child and keep reminding him or her about what you read and see and pushing him against the wall by telling, oh, see, Prahlad did that. Now you behave very badly. You didn't behave like Prahlad. Or do you remember what Dhruva said? Things like that. No, these things will come naturally. These character training, the character qualities that we read will naturally rub on the children. And when they behave in a day-to-day way with their friends, with their family, or outside, then they will naturally exhibit these qualities. They will come naturally. And there's so many devotional activities you can do at home, or outside. I know in opportunities in your countries, there's very fewer opportunities than what you can find elsewhere, unfortunately. But you try to be creative and try to see how best you can do it, right? Be creative. See how you can, just like, with the virus, we've become so creative with different things we can do with our children, right? And how to keep them engaged. In the same way, you have to become creative, how you can expand their Krishna consciousness in so many ways, to increase their chanting and hearing, to have festivals. Festivals is always a great way of practically doing, bringing things into practice by actually doing devotional service, decorating, cleaning, so many wonderful ways we can keep our children engaged. Okay, next question. As a student, grade 6, I start to get more work. So how to balance the spiritual development and my education? How much time should I spend on my spirituality every day? Good question. So we get our homework done. I know there's a lot of online homework that's going on nowadays, but then we find a balance. In other words, we must understand, first of all, how important this kind of education is, right? The spiritual part of our life is ultimately most beneficial, because if you don't develop this, then everything else was quite useless, right? So we understand the importance of spiritual life, spiritual education. And in this way, when we are convinced that how, when we develop our love for Krishna, then material will be automatically taken care of, then we will find a way. The wonderful thing is that Krishna expands. Krishna is time, and he will expand time. Krishna is time, and how miraculously he will expand time. If you have a desire to actually serve him, he will expand time. So just keep on desiring like this, and Krishna will find a way. Okay? Okay, next is other than giving responsibilities for some seva and occasionally gifting them, what could be the different ways to reward them to remain motivated in Krishna consciousness? Great. Well, their reward is the happiness that we are feeling for them, and they can see it in the parents. The children are, their whole motivation in life is to please their parents, at least the ones who've been raised in a nice way, And so when they see you happy, that becomes their real motivation. They really don't need material rewards, and to make them devotees based on material gifts is not a good idea, because then they equate, their incentive for doing Krishna consciousness based on what they can get. You see, and that's not good. They should be happy because they're feeling happy, because the more they're becoming Krishna conscious, the more they're becoming happier, right? So definitely uh, we should try to one way to motivate them would be to applaud them, to express to them how pleased you are with them and how you're proud of them. And that really helps them in motivating them to see that their parents are so proud of them and they can do that, they are doing so well, right? Now, I forgot that the earlier question also asked how much time should I spend on spirituality. I would definitely spend some time on reading Srimad Bhagavatam every day. That's the answer to that question for that child, and also finding some time to chant, even if you're doing 1 or 2 rounds, but it's nice to keep that up. So hearing and chanting is very important, in taking out the time for that. It's very, very important. Okay. If you can do some seva, that's also nice, if you can maybe put the flowers on the altar, or, offer the food, or, if you're more, inspired, you can do it, an artik, do kirtan or whatever, whatever inspires you. Some practical devotional service, but something for our brain, for intelligence. So if you combine the two, and this makes it a nice balance of everything. Okay. Okay. Let's see if there's any more questions. I'm not sure how many more there is. Well, the way somebody wants to know how my day was, a typical day was. So basically, we would get up and, because we were running a preaching center, we didn't get much time to. We were sometimes up late, very late, because there were festivals and guests coming in and out. So we could not wake up at 4 or 4:30. We could not have Mangal Arati, but then we had Mangal Arati later on, like 6:30. And then we would do a morning program, and we would sit down, and they would have some breakfast, and then we would sit down and do Bhagavatam for 1 or 2 hours. So they did not have to go to school. So it didn't matter how long we did. And so if the discussion was going really well, then I would do longer. And sometimes I would do it like an hour, and sometimes 2 hours, like that. And then we would, this is how we started our day. Now I have to make a point that sometimes if you're not able to even make it at 6 or 6:30, it's okay. Whenever your children do get up, just remember to start your day with a morning program. That's very, very important. Even if it's like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it's important to start the day out with chanting and glorifying the Lord. It really sets the mood really well. And then you could give them something to eat. Children's needs have to be met, and then one can read with them Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a very nice way to start, because the enthusiasm is very good at that time. If you cannot do it in the morning, then do it in the afternoon or evening. It's okay, but do it. Sometimes it just cannot be worked out in the morning because of so much housework and things. It's okay. It's actually okay. So in this way. And then after that, I would go out, and we would do preaching programs. As you know, in America, one can do these things very well, So we'd go out, and I would arrange this ahead of time, where we'd have book tables or prasadam tables. And this is how our day would start, in reaching out to others. And not every day. Sometimes we stayed at home and did other activities, at home. There was so much to do. Maybe there was a festival coming up. We had to plan for that. Maybe we had to go shopping, get bhoga, like that. So our day was naturally very different from a typical day of child going to school. So it can be adjusted accordingly. And then, in this way, it was very, very, I remember children didn't even know there was school. In a way, they thought it was one big play, but yet we were doing so much. I could see how much was being done. But because it was presented in a Krishna conscious way, it never felt like that. Okay. So of course, this is a whole different topic. And if I were to speak on that, This is a different type of seminar that I give where I talk about things like that. Okay. So the next question is, when a mother has children at home all day, is it devotionally ideal to feel that she needs some time to be by herself and do something just for her relaxation? Is it selfish? No, it's not selfish. It's very natural. It's very much needed. And so it's very, very natural. And yes, you should get some time to yourself, and hopefully when the children are doing are sleeping, if they're younger, when they're asleep, you can have your time. If the husband is gone to work, or in the evening when the husband comes home, maybe he can give you a break where you can have some time, go on a walk, or maybe if you can't do that, then have your own time. Yes, it's really nice. I mean, it's especially, I know everybody can feel that more because of this the time for the virus, and everybody is kind of caged into their homes without able to go anywhere, so you feel that more. So no, this is very natural, and the family should work as a unit together to help each other, get their time, and and do something where they can relax and chant. Okay. A nice way to chant is, yeah, to find this kind of time. If with the help of other members of the family, it's nice. Or if the children are chanting 12 rounds or that many rounds, then definitely you should chant with them. That's very nice. Okay, next question. As a mother, what do you think, if she is prepared, she should be prepared with mentally, psychologically when homeschooling? As children are all the time with the mother, she wouldn't find the time needed for herself or even to study and prepare with the material to teach the children and strike a balance between homeschooling and family. Yeah, like I said, it's a sacrifice. It's not easy, but just it's, to me, I felt that material life is a life of austerity anyway. Like I remember my children were going to school first, initially for two years, and I was always running back and forth doing things with them because there were so many events happening, and I was always worried about the lunch boxes and what I need to do, put in there, because it has to be something that the children don't feel out of place. And then there were parties, birthday parties there. I was running back and forth with cookies that had no eggs, and and cakes, and then making sure there's plenty for other children. I remember just going through all that back and forth, and just always been anxiety. And then when they came back home, I had to see where they're at, and I would realize that, oh, they're in so much of this other consciousness, this worldly this material rather consciousness, because Bhagavatam gives us a lot of worldly knowledge, right? It's just the consciousness becomes so materialistic, and to try to drag them back into feeling like a devotee consciousness was very, very hard. And it was such a struggle that I couldn't do it. It was really hard sometimes, but then I would have to force myself, and in order to get them to learn how to play mridanga or read some shastra with me. So I started feeling that struggle and said, why not? Why not try homeschooling now? And then, yeah, it had another set of problems, obviously. Nothing comes without problems. But I realized that these struggles were more easier for me, and these struggles were more pleasing. I could please Krishna with these struggles and myself and my family in this way, and I preferred these kind of struggles, and for me, obviously, the struggle was also like you're writing here, the struggles of how to strike a balance, between as a mother and as a teacher, but it's a whole different topic, homeschooling. And, we could get into it more deeper, and I can share with you my experiences on that level. There's a lot of people out there, who are interested in this concept of homeschooling. We can talk about it. But basically, it's not very difficult, what I'm saying. It's to switch from being a parent, from being a mother to a teacher, it's not very hard because we're dealing. Okay, so please mute yourself, whoever is out there. So this balance between, it's something that happens naturally, right? That we, we know when we need to teach, we just sit down and teach with them, teach them. And we're teaching anyway. All day we're teaching them. We're the teachers anyway, right? It's just a matter. And the child has no problem seeing the different roles. It's us who have this hang up. The child can easily switch from one to another. My life as a homeschooler was very, very flexible because we had a preaching center. So it wasn't, it wasn't that I had special times in a special room with a desk and everything ready. And then there were times, okay, you were going to be punished in this room for 6 hours a day, and then you can come and have your fun. It wasn't like that. For me, it was very flexible, and but there was an overall structure behind that. I knew what I was doing. I knew, okay, there's progress here. I had to cover that much today, and I did that, and I see the results here. But for children, we don't have to give them this kind of punishment in a homeschooling environment. It's meant that we don't want them to lose their childhood. You know, the motivation becomes greatest when they are motivated, right? When they are Krishna conscious. When Krishna is part of the picture, they are highly motivated even to do secular subjects. That's the point I'm making. Because they know there's a purpose why they're doing this. Okay. Okay, so the next question is, I think we're done. So thank you all. I don't see any more questions here. And this has been a long time, almost like 2 hours. So I'm sure it's all of you must be tired. And okay, there is one question. I always felt that children need to grow with their age group, children to play and have fun, especially when they are children. Don't the children miss that? No, they do need. I should clarify that very strongly. They do need their own age group to play with and frolic with and have fun with. But the point of my thing was for somebody who was struggling to do homeschooling because of this fear of social interaction. My point was that as long as they get some of it, like with if there's other homeschoolers children that they can play with, if they need to, but during the but at least if they get it during the weekends, some kind of situation where they can interact. I had the same situation, right? I was homeschooling. I had two boys, right? But then, so they could not get that environment like in school with the 20 other children, but they felt very satisfied because, we had weekend programs and they had friends over to sleepovers, and they were and things like that, and there was a lot of fun, and there were festivals. We were holding festivals, we were inviting people. Sometimes those festivals would be during the weekday, so they had their friends come over. I had them direct plays and have dramas with their friends. There was so much interaction with them, with their own friends and with their own age group, because they were doing dramas together, they were playing together during Sunday, after the Sunday program, and even during the week, when they would have festivals. So there was plenty of opportunity. Yes, children do need other children of the age group to play and have fun with. Without that, they'd lose their creativity. They need to exercise their creativity. The point I'm making is that adult association is also necessary. If we keep their children only in the environment with their young children, because they're there 8 hours a day, and by the time they come home, they have homework and they go to bed. Where is the meaningful association that they need? That was my point. They are getting association at the level of their own intelligence or even lower. Prabhupada used to say, if they're only interacting with children, then it's like fools, getting information from other fools, right? Of course, we don't think they're completely as fools in the sense that their knowledge is limited. They need knowledge from older people, right? And that's what teachers are meant for in schools, to give them this maturity. But so if they are constantly staying, which is the condition here in the West, children are immediately separated from the adults. When they go to church, there's a separate area for children and a separate area for adults. You'll never see them together. Of course, thankfully, we don't do that. That was my point. They need both. Okay. Good question, though. Very good question. Anybody else? Okay, let's see. How to control anger. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I think this is it. Yeah. Somebody is asking, requesting for another demo class for one story from the Bhagavatam. So we can think about that, and we'll see. It has to be a totally different story, a total contrast, so that one can. We'll have to think about that and see when we could do that. Okay, if needed. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much. We really appreciate and understand from you are saying, I mean, the 2 sessions. It was really a great understanding even for us adults to, it's a lot of learning. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu, for your kind attention. Thank you all for your kind attention and being such a wonderful audience, so quiet. Even the children, I know there were so many children out there and they were patiently hearing everything. You have a wonderful group of devotees there. I'm really happy. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thanks a lot, Mataji.
Thank you,
On behalf of all the children and all the parents from Middle East.
Mataji. Thank you very much, Mataji. Pranam, Mataji.
Thank you, Gopi Priya.
Thank you so much,
I
Mataji.
want to take this opportunity to thank Gopi Priya Mataji for arranging everything. She's been patiently doing all this for making it possible for this, for all of you to, for us to come together. Thank you, Gopi Priya Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Thanks a lot, Mataji, for your patience and tolerance. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
You are a good example for all the parents. And we seek your blessings that we can take advantage of whatever you have spoken. Each and every sentence of yours is full of realizations because you have practiced them. So please bless us that we can take some points and apply them in our life as parents and teachers.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Pranams.
Hare Krishna.